So this is going to be just a quick little thing of maybe how to make text move and add an image. We're going to actually add one of the Westview Wildcat PNG files. A PNG file typically is a kind of a professional file. It's like a JPEG image, but if it's PNG, it has an alpha layer, so you can actually delete the background, and because it's a PNG file with an alpha layer, it won't read the background, so you'll have an image without a background, which is very useful. So I'm going to start here. Here's After Effects. I haven't imported anything. I have a zip file of all the Westview Wildcat PNG files on the module. I think it's week 1. And I'm going to go File. I downloaded it, and I double-clicked it, which opened up the folder. And here it is right here. Sorry. This is a new OS on my laptop, so it's a little different here. And I have different things here. Here's a wildcat face. Now notice again, it has a white background when you look at it, but when we bring it in, it will not have a background. So I have a couple of these. So let's go with that one. Let's go with the wildcat holding the W. So I'm going to import it, and notice it doesn't have, see how the background's black in the example? And if I drag it, it's huge, but sorry, I can grab the corner. Now most of the time you want to hold the shift key so it doesn't stretch. Like if I don't, see I do that? If I don't hold the shift key, see how it stretches? But if I hold the shift key while I'm changing it, it stays in perspective. So the height and the width are kind of attached. Okay, so here's a wildcat, and I'll put it here. And then I'm going to click away from it, and here are all the tools right here. I'm going to click the T tool and type out Westview. And then I'm going to grab my selection tool, the little arrow right here. And now notice, let me zoom in here. So if you'll notice, see this little thing right here, this little point right here. See how it looks different than all the other little points? That's the axis. Axis. So if I click on my layer, which says Westview, which is the text, and I press R for rotation, I'll show you. See how it rotates on that axis? And most of the time, you don't want that. So what I'm going to do is, there's a couple different ways I can do it. I can grab this pan from behind tool right here, and I can move it and try to get the middle, or I can click on the layer. Sorry, let me grab my selection tool again. I can click on the layer and go Layer, Transform, Center Anchor Point in Layer Content. So it's going to take whatever's on that layer and make the access point, or the anchor point, in the middle. So it did that. Okay. So again, let me, so there it is again. By default, it kind of starts right there. And I want it in the middle, so I'm going to click on this layer, go to Layer, Transform, and then Center Anchor Point. And again, there's the anchor. So then if I rotate it, see how it rotates from the middle. And that's what you want. So let me make sure this is 0. There you go. Okay. So now we have West View. Now let's get another text here. I'm going to click off of it. See, I'm going to grab my text tool again and say news. Okay. Now let's do this. Let's highlight the text and let's change it red. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my selection tool again and click on West View. You don't have to highlight the text here. I just click with my selection tool, see how it's activated. And then I'm going to make this blue because that's the color of West View. Okay, now it doesn't look good on black background. And let me zoom out again. See this 100%? I can zoom out to, let's say, 33%. I always like to work so I'm a little bit further away. And this black area, rectangle, is the area that whatever's in here is going to show up in your movie. Whatever's in the gray areas in the workspace. But a lot of times, I want things to start where you can't see them and then move them in. Okay? So that's why I like to look at the work area. Now what I'll do is, if I'm creating an intro like this, I'll position it how I want it to end. Okay? So let's see here. I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger. I'm going to hold the shift and just make it a little bit bigger, I think. And I'll move this over. And I'll grab news. Now, remember, what I didn't do was, see, here's the access point here. So with that layer activated, I'll go Layer, Transform, Center Anchor Point, and again, it moves it in the middle. And again, it's not all the time that you want the access point or the place where it's going to rotate from in the middle, but generally you do. Okay. So something like that. So, but see how it's a black background? So let me show you how to make a layer of a color. So if I go to Layer, New, the word Layer and New, I can go to Solid. That's one of the types of layers that I can do. And when I go to Solid, I'll call it White. And I'll make the color, here's the color choice. I'll make it a true, pretty much true white. 255, 255, and 255 is true white, but, you know, again, I'm doing this on the fly. Now it's on a layer, it's on the top layer, and that's why you see it. So what I can do is, I can grab this layer that I just made and drag it to the bottom, okay? And I think that looks a lot better. All right, so as I said, I'm gonna have it end here, and what I want to do is set some keyframes so it ends here already, because I've already placed it, and then I'll figure out how it's going to start. Okay, as I said, this makes a lot of sense because from a design standpoint, you know how you kind of figure out first how you want it to end. And then you set a keyframe so you have a keyframe set so it's going to finish there. And then you go back on the timeline and set another keyframe and figure out how it's going to get there. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to go to News, and I'm going to set two keyframes. I'm going to set a keyframe for scale and a keyframe for position. The position is the X and the Y. The scale is the size of it, okay? So I'm going to press P on the keyboard and see how position comes up. And what I'm going to do is, let me go back to, no, I'm just going to set it at 1 second. I'm going to move my scrubber to 1 second. I haven't set a keyframe yet. And I'm going to click this little clock to set the keyframe, okay? And then I'm also going to click on that layer and press S for scale. and I'm going to set the keyframe, okay? So I have a keyframe for position and a keyframe for scale. So news at 1 second will be right there. Now I haven't done anything before it, but again, I like to position it how it's going to end. So I'm going to go to the word Westview and press P, and again, set a keyframe by clicking this little clock and see the little dot come up. And then I'm going to also I'll slide this in. So I'm only going to use position for this, for Westview, but I'm going to use scale for news and position. And then on the Wildcat PNG, I'm going to press, let's see how this position, and I'll set a keyframe. And then maybe I'll set rotation too. So I'm going to press R for rotation. See how rotation comes up on that layer? And I'm going to, again, click a keyframe because I know I want it to end here, whatever I'm going to do before. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning. And on news, let's take news first. On news, I have two keyframes. So if I press U, so if I press U, I clicked on the layer and I pressed the key U, and what it does is it shows me both keyframes that are on this layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I have scale and position. So I'm going to make this bigger. Let me hold the shift key down. I know that's crazy. And let me zoom out to like 12%. And then I'm going to move it. See how the line is? I'm going to move it over here. And let's see here. I think I also need rotation. So I'm going to put it back here where the dots are and press R for rotation. And then I can press U. So now I'm dealing with rotation because I want to rotate this. So I'm going to grab my rotation tool and spin it a couple times. See, like that. So again, I always like to figure out where it's going to end. Notice I did that at 1 second. Now I can move these keyframes around once they're set to make it shorter or to make it longer or to start or finish later. I can grab these keyframes and make it shorter so it's faster. Okay, but see, they're set, and the great thing is because you set the end, you know where you want it to end, which is the most important part. Okay, so I'll start it there. Now, what we're going to do is let's go back to Westview, and because again Westview is going to end there, I'm going to go back to the beginning, and all I'm going to do is grab my selection tool, and I only have one keyframe, but I can press U. Sorry. And it's going to show me all the keyframes on that layer. So right now I just have position. So because my idea was I'm going to move it here just so it comes off, okay? Like that. Now, again, what I can do is, to make it quicker, I can grab this keyframe once I set it, and figure out when I want Westview to show up. Like that. Okay? Now, with the PNG, let me press U, and I have rotation and position. I'm also going to do scale. I think. No, yeah, I'll do scale. Okay, just a second here. So I'm going to position. Notice I grab the scrubber and I put it over the keyframes, and I'm going to press S for scale on the Wildcat PNG layer. And I set the keyframe, and again, I'm setting it at the end where I want it to stop. And then if I press U, again, it's going to show me all those keyframes on that layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with all three. Let me, on the scale, I'm going to grab these numbers. See how it has a lock? So the width and the height is going to be connected. I'm going to move it to like that, okay? So it's going to scale up. And then also what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it. Like that. So what I did was, on the rotation, if you'll see, there are two numbers here. The first one is the amount of rotation. So I got it up to 57, and you just kind of mess around with the numbers and get what you want, okay? And then the position, I'm not really going to do anything. I thought I was going to do something with position, but I'm just going to have it scale up like that. Okay, something really quick. All right, and I'm just kind of messing around. And again, the cool thing is you press letters like P for position, or R for rotation, or S for scale. And there's all these, a couple, those are the main ones that you use. But what I'll do is, so right now I have the word Westview kind of showing up just before news shows up. And I want the Wildcat to show up just as they sit. So see right there. And I can go, if I use the arrow keys, I can go frame by frame. So I'm going the back arrow right here, or the left arrow. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I messed up because I had that layer. So let me just delete this keyframe. I'm going to click on this keyframe, if you can see, and press delete. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Now I'm good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these keyframes and move them in. This is all going to happen pretty quick. So here's where here's where the Westview stops. Here's where the news stops, and here's where the Wildcat stops, and it's super quick. Okay? Now, really, the cool thing is going to be this. What I'm going to do is let me close my layers here. See these little arrows on each layer? So it's kind of cleaner. I'm going to set motion blur. So as you see this little icon here where it says enables motion blur, this is for the whole project. You want to click that, and then on each layer, not the solid layer, but the text and the Wildcat picture, I'm going to set motion blur. And because it's moving fast, see the blurring? See the blurring? Okay. Now, there's another thing we can do is, let me press U. I can highlight. You want to be careful, but I'm going to highlight these keyframes. See how they're little like diamonds? I'm going to highlight them all and right-click and say Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, and see how they turn into hourglasses. So one thing you can do is you can create like acceleration and deacceleration from points. So now, rather than have a straight line like the little diamonds do by default, it has a curve on it to kind of show you that. And also what you can do is, once you have them highlighted, you can go into here, and this is a graph, and there's different types of graphs, and the only one you want is the speed graph. Okay? And then if you zoom in, see this little zoom tool right here? You can zoom in, and if I click on it, see these little yellow handles? I can make it even more intense. Okay? And then I can click off of it to get back. All right? So I'm going to save it. And also what you can do is, when you make something in After Effects, let me zoom out all the way. If you see this thick gray line here, that's called the work area. I can grab this work area. You don't want to grab this one, but it's the one just above it, and this is the work area. And so, see, I'm doing stuff right here. I don't need anything down here because all of it's happening here, right? So I can move this, and then if I press the space bar, it's going to play it, and watch, it's going to loop it. Okay? And I can look at it that way. So if I didn't do that, it would play the whole workspace, and there's nothing happening. So, and that happens all the time. So you know, even though your timeline is 10 seconds, you can shorten this so when you make a movie, sorry, let me put it back inside. It'll loop, and it'll only play and only, you know, record this area. So let me go back to maybe 33%. Here you go. All right. So hopefully you learned something from here. Motion blur and setting keyframes and pressing U to see all your keyframes on a layer. And yeah, go ahead and give it a try, and I'll be here to assist you in any way I can. Thanks.